Hey there, happy Friday, everybody. I am still traveling, so I'm posting this video. Was pre-recorded, and I'm talking about, again, mixing orchestral cues, but getting better mixes. And this is building on the last video I did that was really about using delay and reverb pre-delay to kind of get at a more realistic reverb sound, a more realistic space if you are shooting for kind of like a symphonic hall type sound in your mixes. And today I want to talk about these plugins that are behind me. We've got some stereo imagers. I'm going to talk about how stereo feels, left and right, imaging, width, how all of that can be controlled and manipulated with some commonly available tools, and also explain why and how, and give you some very simple guidelines, just a handful of guidelines to follow if you're new to this and you just want to be able to apply some things right off the bat and feel like you're making some informed decisions. That's the whole purpose of this video. So take myself off the screen here and just look behind us. And right at the top here, what I've got is the built-in Imager plugin that comes with Cubase. Now, I imagine many DAWs have something similar. At the bottom here, I've got a plugin that basically does the same thing. This is a part of Ozone, which is made by Isotopes. Fantastic. It's called Ozone 10 Imager. I'm going to choose to use the Ozone Imager because it's got one feature I love over the Cubase one, but they basically do the same thing, which is there's 4 different ranges. These are multi-band controls, so you might recognize this kind of look from a multi-band compressor as well if you've used one of those. But the red is low range, blue is low mids, green is upper mids, and then this orange is the highs. And then you can manipulate each one, and this middle sort of XY graph gives you a view of just how spread in the stereo field that is. If I play it back, you can see some of those graphics start to take place, and then you can use the knobs to manipulate it. Now, the imager here does basically the same thing. You can see down here in this kind of graph space, this vector scope, as they call it, that there's a lot going on in the stereo field. I also sometimes, just for the purposes of measuring what's going on, I use this plugin over here called Insight, which is giving us much the same information as this over here. It has other features in it, which I'm not going to go into, but it's up here so that I can demonstrate monoizing your audio as well. Okay, so there is built-in options, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to focus on using Ozone Imager. So what are we really talking about here? We're talking about, let me actually pull up my slide here because this is going to be helpful for people who are new to this. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to manipulate the effect that in-phase or out-of-phase audio has on how we hear sound. So sound that is in phase, which at its very simplest is completely mono, where what's coming out the left speaker and what's coming out the right speaker are exactly the same. In that situation, our sensation is that it's louder. And if what's coming out of the left speaker and the right speaker are offset from each other, one's playing a little earlier than the other, it'll actually make it quieter. So extremely to the point that if you have the exact opposite coming out the left speaker as the right speaker, you get silence. Now, that may not happen in an actual physical space, but in theory, it will happen because if you had headphones and your left ear was inverted, completely 180 out of phase from your right ear, you'd have a bizarre experience. Okay, so what we're trying to do is manipulate this. We're trying to observe what the phase is. Where is our audio from left to right or in the center? We're trying to observe that, and then we're trying to manipulate it on a frequency basis. So we're trying to manipulate the low frequency stuff differently from the low mids or the high mids or the highs. And that's what these advanced tools are designed to do. Break everything, break our audio into these frequency ranges so that we can then manipulate their placement in the stereo field. And then this diagram that I put, or not diagram, but just table I put together here is kind of a quick reference for those who maybe are brand new to this and want some quick and dirty guidelines. Now, like everything, I will just say, this is a great art. There are people who have spent their whole lives developing skills around mixing audio, and in no way should this very simplistic view be taken as the authority on this. This is just what I said it is. It's quick guidelines for beginners to feel like they can start making informed decisions. But this is a deep science and a deep art, and you still often want to rely either on great experience or go find somebody who has that experience if you want an outstanding mix. But in general, the pros would agree with me. The lows, you're going to want more centered. The low mids, you're going to want them more or less centered, but a little bit of spread, right? So they're not right down the middle. They're starting to go into panning left and right, but not a lot. The high mids, much more. You want to have them spreading out into much more of the left and right stereo field, much less centered. And then the highs are where you want to spread things out the most, and they really shouldn't be centered. And what that's going to do is you're going to feel the lows, which are centered. The perception is going to be that that's very loud. What is low mids, they're going to be next most perceived. And then as you move up into mids and highs, those frequencies are going to be less dominant. And that's actually a well-balanced stereo field. Now, you may need to remix things in order to get the levels you want, and that's fine. But you want to understand what a good-looking stereo field is. And this table basically breaks that down into some very simplistic guidelines. So let's go back here and do that, right? So the last plugin that I have up here, just to explain it, it's again built into Cubase, and I can use it to very quickly monoize my audio because I just want to demonstrate something for you here. I'm going to go over to, I'm going to take myself off the screen so we can see this diagram here. And I've got this little mono button here. When I hit that, you're going to see what happens in this vector scope right here. So I'm going to play. You can see how we get a straight line. Now that straight line basically is indicating that the audio is right up the middle. And as you can tell, you can tell a big difference in the listenability of this when it's got a nice spread in the stereo field versus monoized. Let's listen to that without me talking. So there's a big difference in the listenability of that. Now, what's happening here already is that I'm using Berlin strings and Berlin orchestra, Berlin brass, Berlin winds, Berlin percussion from orchestral tools. And those sample libraries are recorded in situ. So they are recorded with the panning of a real orchestra already kind of built into the samples. So there's really nice stereo spread already just coming out of the samples. But using the monoizer demonstrates for you there's a big difference between what's dead center and what is on the outside. So now let's look at manipulating this. We don't actually want to monoize it. I just want to look at how I'd manipulate this. Let's take a look at this Imager plugin. And again, if you're using a built-in plugin, you'd probably find something similar. And I'm going to tell you what it is that I love about the Ozone Imager, which is that, as you see, this is currently not broken into lows, low mids, upper mids, and highs. But it will actually do this for me. So I'm going to go ahead and add 3 of these, and I'm going to hit the learn while it's playing. So in that process, I'm really getting a much quicker isolation of what a professional tool is analyzing my audio and telling me what the lows, low mids, upper mids, and high frequency ranges are, so that my manipulation of them is just a little more informed, and I got there in a second flat. So that's great. Now in the area here with these 4 faders, the first fader is going to be for the first section right here, second fader, second section, right? So we got lows, we got low mids, upper mids, and highs. I'm not going to worry about these for right now. But if you increase this slider, then essentially what it's going to do is add width, and if you decrease it, it's going to narrow it. So I basically generally, if you refer back to my example here, you want the lows to be more or less centered, so more narrow, a little less narrow, a lot more wide, and totally wide. So let's recreate that. Assuming that I wasn't already getting a nice stereo spread from my samples, I'd probably want to narrow my bass. I would somewhat narrow my low mids, somewhat widen my upper mids, and then really widen my highs. And then I get something like this. Now there's not too much of an audible difference in this example because I actually am starting with really great width. But if you have a mix, I suggest just apply this principle and see if it makes your mix sound better to you. Be aware that if you listen to these in headphones, you'll be much more sensitive to the width, and that's not necessarily going to convey to people who listen to it on a stereo. So you want to listen to it in a variety of situations to accurately judge whether you're adding too much width or not. It is important to understand that as you add width, there's a very real risk that you actually make things quieter. So you can wind up having your bass and your low mids that are more narrow seem sort of outsized compared to your upper mids and highs. So you need to listen on a variety of listening environments. You want to mix ideally in a room that's properly treated so that you're getting a realistic idea of what the sound is actually doing. But these principles are sound, and you should get better results if you've got something that's really monoized, and you want to be able to break it out by frequency, and you want to spread it out over the frequency range or the stereo field, I'm afraid. So thank you very much. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. I would encourage you to leave questions in the comments. I'll be checking those out. I am still traveling when this video posts. I'm hoping that I'll have another one on Monday, but next Wednesday I will be back live at noon sharp for a live stream. If people want to log on and comment and have a little chat, I want to start encouraging that. Thanks again for supporting my channel, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.